Hi guys, happy May. I hope you had a good end to your April. I'm here with my April reading wrap up today. I read quite a few books, so we're gonna hop right into it. I have separated this video into cozy mysteries, kind of just general mystery, slash suspense, and then thrillers, and then have like one random nonfiction we'll cover at the end. So go ahead, feel free to jump around if you are more interested in some genres over others. Let's start with cozy mystery. Okay, so I have to start with what is one of the best reads of this entire year so far, which I think is pretty high praise because I'm already I think over 50 books into the year, so this is high praise. And this is called Nosy Neighbors by Freya Sampson. Oh my goodness. So I did do a pretty massive reading vlog. I'll link this above because I did have one that included this, so I'll link that above for you to check out if you want. If you enjoyed Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers, I would recommend this because we're following multiple perspectives in this. We have 77-year-old Dorothy and 25-year-old Kat, who has the pink hair that you can see here. But I love Dorothy. I love both of these characters. I actually equally enjoyed both their perspectives, which is pretty rare for a multiple point of view read. Usually I think we tend to prefer one over the other, like someone. I loved both, but basically they both live in this old building together. It's very ancient, it's beautiful, it's very, elegant, and Kat is just scraping by. She's subletting from this nice man there. She's really never had a place to call her own. She's just gone from place to place to place. She's also got a secret in her past that's pretty dark. So does Dorothy. And Dorothy is this very grumpy elderly woman. She's very standoffish, and Kat is standoffish as well in her own way, more of a, leave me alone. And whereas I think Dorothy's a little more come out and be grumpy, kind of bossy, but they're both very standoffish, and Dorothy is always watching her neighbor. She takes notes and everything, making her a very good sleuth later on. The house itself is actually going to be torn down to replace it with other apartments or stuff like that. And despite these two women being very standoffish and prickly with their neighbors, they do agree on one thing, and that's that they do not want the Shelley house to be wrecked. There's also a mystery element when a resident is actually attacked, and Kat and Dorothy come together to solve this mystery, prevent this building from being torn down, and also learning about each other and some of the dark secrets and guilt they harbor about their past. Another one I read this month was A Crust to Die For, a Tiffany Austin food blogger mystery by T.C. Lotempio. This is book 2 in the series. It just came out this year, so I am caught up on the series, and I'm really enjoying it. Our main character in this is Tiffany, and she has 2 pets, a cat and a dog. If you like cat and dogs in your cozies, there's a lot of fun scenes with them. This is definitely very pet, kind of heavy cozy, even though it's a food one first and foremost. She works at this style this Southern style foodie magazine, and in the first book she pitched this idea of a pizza competition like Bake Off, and in book 2 they are doing that competition. She's kind of leading it. She's very excited. There's 3 judges, and one of them, Driscoll, is a very grumpy man. He's got a lot of enemies. Him and Tiffany butted heads after she gave him a bad review for one of his restaurants, so he really does not like Tiffany. But during the competition, she doesn't expect to trip over his body backstage, and that's kind of what kicks off this mystery, and also creates some tension between Tiffany and her romantic interest, who is on the police force. So a lot of fun tropes. This is just a really classic, fun, contemporary cozy. I love the food and the writing elements. I love her pets. They are darling, really cute, and Tiffany's just kind of a fun, spunky character, so I really recommend this. I'd say this was a strong 3.5 to 4 stars for me, a really solid addition to the series. I'm looking forward to reading more. So this book is called Dying to Go, Nothing to Gush About by Marcy Blessy. It's a Tucson Valley retirement community cozy mystery. It's book 1 in the series. There's about 5 out now, I think. It's coming out in pretty rapid fire. Our main character in this is 39-year-old Rosie, and she is back in Tucson Valley where her parents live after a 20-year marriage comes to an end for her, and her dad has an impending knee replacement surgery. She moves back in with them for a while. She's going to be there to help take care of her dad, and she's just, she's kind of stuck in life. She's really struggling. It's been a rough time for her, clearly. And while she's there, she runs into this local business owner and Tart, Salem. I think she runs a local bookshop, and she ends up being murdered, and Rosie gets involved. She actually has a past as a newspaper reporter, so she's using her investigative skills for this, and along the way she meets a very handsome landscaper who she's kind of interested in, and comes across a golden retriever, which is adorable. If you like dogs, oh my goodness, the golden retriever, so cute. My heart was cozy and warm during those scenes for sure. And I like Rosie. She is snappy, she is self-assured, she's having a rough time in life and she doesn't know what she wants, but she's thinking she might find it in Tucson Valley after all, even though it's a retirement community and her parents' friends are a little concerning at times, but I really enjoyed this. It's very humorous, very fun, very witty. I had a really great time with this, so I am looking forward to hopefully reading more in this series. I love the cute covers in this series. And, you know, this town is proving to be more than Rosie bargained for, but that might be just what she needs. Another one I really enjoyed this month was Shades of Earl Grey by Laura Childs. This is a tea shop mystery series. I think this is book 3 in the series. I need to go back and read. Yes, it's book 3 in the series. I actually just checked out book 2 for my library because I ended up accidentally skipping a book, which was fine. Our main character in this is Theodosia Browning, and she is a tea shop owner. She's very educated, very smart, well-spoken, eloquent sleuth. I really enjoy her. She doesn't rush into things as much as a lot of cozy mystery sleuths do. She's a little more mature like that, and I really like that as well. So she's mingling with the cream of society, Charleston society, at this engagement soiree. It's like the event of the season. She's really excited. This was nice and like kind of springy, summery, if I remember the season right. And while she's there, this priceless family heirloom that was like a ring from Marie Antoinette goes missing, along with the groom having a freak accident. But when Theodosia goes to the cops to report her suspicions about the ring being stolen because nobody can find it, they kind of brush her off, and that's when she decides to get involved. I love all the tea elements in this. If you enjoy drinking tea, it's fascinating to learn about some of the process for how they make new tea blends, and I love it. I soak it up. I love the covers for this. It's so elegant and beautiful, and Theodosia is just quickly becoming a favorite sleuth of mine. I really enjoy her like calmer but like really thoughtful presence, so I really recommend this series. I feel like I didn't actually have any duds with cozy mysteries this month, but stay tuned for the like general mysteries and thrillers. I definitely had some duds in there. One I loved was A Midnight Puzzle by Gigi Pandian. This is the 3rd in the Secret Staircase mystery series. If you're wondering, I'm just covering the name of my library there. I love Tempest. Tempest Raj is this incredible woman. She is an ex-stage magician from like Las Vegas. Like she performed on big stages, and she's back home working with her family on their secret staircase business, which makes secret staircases, like think hidden rooms behind shelves and stuff like that. Think like Scooby-Doo, where there's all those like hidden passages and, you know, nooks and crannies that you don't know about until you, I don't know, pushing around on random bricks and then you find one. Stuff like that, right? So really fun concept. There's a lot of magical references with the stage magician stuff, and the author specializes in locked room mysteries, which I love. In this one, Tempest is really upset because her family is being blamed after this client of theirs, Julian, tries to kill his wife, but then blames it on faulty construction that the family did, which isn't true. Well, he gives Tempest a call asking her to meet him somewhere at midnight, and when she goes, she finds his body in like a booby trap. So I'm gonna leave it at that. The less I say, the better, but I love this series. It almost felt like this was kind of a wrap-up for the series. I don't know for sure. If you know if there's more books coming out in the series, let me know, but I'm not entirely sure. Okay, and then last in our strictly cozy mystery section, stay tuned. There's a lot of pretty cozy-esque ones in the mystery section as well, but this one's called Twisted Threads by Leah Waite. It's a mainly needlepoint mystery. I read book like 8 in this series randomly when I got it at like a used library book sale, and then I loved it, and so I wanted to go back and read book 1 and like continue it from there. So this was excellent. So our main character in this is Angie, and she's been living in Arizona, but she's called back to Haven Harbor, her hometown, by her grandmother Charlotte when her mother's remains are found. As a child, I think she was like 9 or 10, Angie's mother disappeared, never to be seen again. They don't know what happened to her. They don't know if she, you know, she was hurt, she abandoned them, but Angie was raised by her grandmother. She had a pretty happy upbringing considering, but they never knew what happened to her. And in this one, she's finally finding out what happened after all these years. And she's helping her grandmother kind of take back her mainly needlepoint business because there's kind of this guy who's been scamming them, and she takes charge, which I love. So this was really fun. There's a really cute cat in this series. It's very cozy and crafty with the needlepoint. I like that Angie herself doesn't needlepoint, at least at this point in the series. So she's kind of like me, it's like all new to her, but she appreciates the craftsmanship behind it, so I really like that, and this has just been such a fun, cozy mystery. Okay, so moving on to the mystery section, we're going to start with one I already returned to my library, and that is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. I hauled this in a big library and like used book haul earlier this month, or in April I should say, and you guys are gonna be surprised. I didn't love it. I wanted to love it. I don't know, I ended up getting like 100 pages in, and I love the premise for this, that literally everyone in this person's family has killed someone. Some were accidents, some were intentional, and they're at this like family reunion in this like ski lodge. So they're isolated, they're finally coming to terms with each other because some of them have been avoiding each other, but the writing style, everything else about it was perfect, but the writing style for me, it was so kind of over the top, like trying to be very clever. And I think it was clever, but like it just felt like it was breaking the fourth wall a little too much for me. It just felt like a little too in your face, like on the nose. I don't know, I just didn't love the writing style. I'm still gonna try the second book in the series because it takes place on a train, and I love that trope. I love the train setting so much, but I didn't love it. I don't know. I feel like everybody loved this book too, and I'm like, what did I don't know, maybe I just wasn't in the right mood. I'm gonna try book 2 in the series, but it wasn't my favorite, which I'm really sad about. Then I actually read these 2 books that my mom lent me, which is by Mary Higgins Clark. This is Where Are the Children and Where Are the Children Now? So this is my first actually Mary Higgins Clark. I know she's quite popular for suspense and like mystery. Hadn't read anything by her before. I'm hooked. I'm hooked. This one was definitely stronger, the original, but the sequel was still pretty good considering. So our main character in Where Are the Children is Nancy, and she is harboring a dark secret about what happened to her first, like, 2 children in her first marriage. Well, she's fled that situation, she's cut her hair, she's moved, she's changed her name, like she's really done everything to try to change her identity and move on. She's remarried and she now has a 5-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter, and one day her worst nightmare is happens again, and that's that her children are gone. She goes outside, she only finds a mitten from her daughter, and that is the question, where are the children? In this one, we actually follow her adult daughter who is now grown up, and a similar situation happens to her children. So very eerie, very hard to read because it's always difficult to read about children in situations like that, but I did really enjoy these. This was like a good 4-star read. This was maybe like 3 to 3.5 stars for me, but I'm intrigued. I definitely would consider reading more by Mary Higgins Clark, so let me know if you have a recommendation, like a favorite book from her. I'd love to know. Okay, and then last for kind of the mystery suspense section. Some people might consider this a thriller. I think it's more of a mystery, and that's by Ruth Ware. This is The Death of Miss Westaway. So I'm a big Ruth Ware fan. I know some people don't really love her, but I feel like it's because she's kind of misclassified as a thriller author when she's more of like a mystery author in my opinion. But our main character in this one is Harriet, or Hal as she likes to be called, and she receives a very interesting letter basically telling her she is getting this big inheritance and she needs to come to this like big estate. So she arrives only to find out that she's being left a lot, and she had no idea about these people, and she's not even sure she's the right person. So she might kind of just play along with the scam, try to see if she can get some help because she's really in a desperate situation. She doesn't have any family. She's actually a tarot card reader, which I found very interesting. There's a lot of references to that, and she's a little bit of a scam artist in a way. So I found this to be a very interesting read, learning about the family dynamics of like the Westaway family. Fascinating. The mystery for this, the ending for it, absolutely threw me. I loved this. I could barely put it down when I started it. It was a real page turner, so I really recommend it. Okay, moving on to thrillers. This first one was a bit out of my normal comfort zone for thrillers because it's more of a police procedural. I'm not as big on the legal, like police kind of thrillers, but I liked this. This is called Cold to the Touch by Carrie Hakoda. And this is described as a diabolical murder thriller, like kind of spree. And we're basically following around this police detective. He goes by Beans, which I love. It's hard to take someone seriously if their name is Beans, but like it makes it kind of humorous when it's not. I love it. Anyways, Beans is on this case because one morning he is called to the scene of a crime where there is this barista who is in the snow and she has been brutally murdered. She's frozen, and unfortunately her remains have been tampered with because of the wildlife out in Alaska. there's been like scavengers and stuff, so a lot of evidence has been destroyed, but he's really shocked when he realizes that he knows this person. This is a barista that he actually sees regularly when he gets his coffee, and shortly after that, a body of another barista, similar situation, is found. There's some kind of murder spree happening and he's on the case. He also has to work with his ex, who's like a forensic expert, Risa, and there's a little bit of drama there. What I liked about this is even though it was a police procedural, so you had like, you know, a lot of forensic stuff like that, there was still a very strong emotional element with his relationship with his family and the baristas, knowing some of them personally, and just I really liked it. There was still a good emotional connection. That's what made it fun for me, and the ending for this was high stakes, so I really enjoyed this. I'm so bummed out by this one. I thought I would love this, but there was something about the writing style, it was so kind of over the top grisly. So basic premise for this is we have our main character, she's a wife, and she gets a call from her husband who's saying sorry to her for this like horrible thing that she's like, there's no way, and he ends up dead, and she is just shocked, and she realizes she doesn't know this much as much as she thought she did about her husband, who is an artist. He's very even-tempered. Well, she decides to go to this old broken down motel where he was renting room 10, and that's what he was kind of using as an art studio. So she goes there to try to find out clues about his life and discovers he really had this second life she didn't know much about. And you're also reading from the perspective of like the apartment manager, which felt kind of random. Maybe it made more sense towards the end, I don't know, but I got about 100 pages in and I just felt like not a lot had happened past the synopsis, which was a little disappointing, but it just felt so heavy and like dark and grisly. Like the writing itself was really lovely, but it just was really dark and grisly and just felt heavy, and I just wasn't having fun with it, so I ended up putting it aside. I think a lot of people would really enjoy this. It just felt a little heavy for me, so I put it aside. So the perfect ones. I was really disappointed in this one. It's advertised as a thriller, but this was really just like a look at behind the scenes with the influencers. So we had Celeste, who is kind of best friends with Alabama, and she goes on the trip with her, and I liked her the best. I think she has a child who's kind of having some behavioral issues. Her marriage is like a little bit interesting. And then we have Holly, who is the one who seems to have it all. She's got like the perfect marriage, she's got the perfect followers, she's like the biggest of them all, she's growing really fast, everyone's kind of looking up to her, and they both get involved because they have like some kind of secret or like involvement with Alabama, who goes missing. I did not like this. It just kind of felt like a fictional novel about influencers with like a last ditch effort at a thriller at the end. It was just kind of odd. I really didn't care for it, unfortunately, so I wouldn't recommend this one personally. One that I loved was Everyone Is Watching by Heather Gudenkopf. This is a fun premise. This is a crazy like reality TV like competition-esque one. Basically, these people get invited to this crazy reality TV show, and they're at this mansion, and they're all completely secluded on this estate in Northern California. They're competing for $10 million. It's called One Lucky Winner, but they don't know the terms of the show, just that they're going to be filmed and that there's going to be games. But these games are high stakes, and it seems like the more they get into this game that there might be a little bit more to why these people were specifically chosen for the show. I'll leave it at that, but I love this. The ending for this really got me, and I just had such a fun time with the competition and the setup. This was right up my alley. It was like a locked room thriller, so really high entertainment. You're reading from multiple points of views. This was just like a perfect storm for me with everything I like in a thriller, so I really recommend this if that premise sounds fun to you. It was a blast. One that I returned to my library that I'm mixed feelings on is Never Lie by Freida McFadden. So this is the third Freida McFadden I've read. I started with The Coworker, and I really enjoyed that. It was like a 3.5, 4 stars. I actually really liked it. Then I read The Teacher, and that was a hot mess. That was a disaster. That one the ending didn't make sense. The content wasn't great. No. The thing I will say about Freida McFadden is she's very good at pacing. Like her books, you just speed through them so quickly. So she's really got the pacing down, but there's something kind of feels a little generic about her thrillers. I don't know. But this one, Never Lie, I thought had a really cool premise. There's like a couple, and they're looking at this home they want to move into, and it's remote. It's snowed in. They get snowed in, they stay the night there. And this home used to be owned by this famous psychologist. She was a recluse, she was very wealthy, there's a lot of mystery surrounding her, and you're kind of reading some different perspectives and timelines. And the ending for this made no sense at all. Not only was it just frustrating beyond all belief and confusing, and there were all these weird comments to the characters when they were thinking to themselves, but the ending made no sense because you were reading from the characters their own perspective, like you're reading their thoughts. So unless the characters were keeping secrets from themselves, the ending makes absolutely no plausible sense. And I'm disappointed because, again, the pacing was excellent, and I love the idea of the psychologist, this recluse, this author. I love the idea of this like estate, the snowed in. Like, I love the setting, I love the premise, I liked the pacing, but it made no sense whatsoever, and there was just nothing redeemable about these characters. So I think I'm on a break with Frida McFadden. I'm really, yeah, this was like maybe 2 stars. I did finish it. I mean, was it entertaining in some ways? Yes, but would I recommend it? No, I really wouldn't. I don't know. I don't know if I just got lucky with the coworker and this is just how it's gonna be if I read anything else by her, but this was not it for me. Then I read Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth. This was my book of the month pick. It's also one of the books I featured in a vlog this month. I'll link that up. It should already be linked above, actually. I loved this. This was a 5-star read. This was one of the best thrillers I read this month by far. So we're following 3 girls. We're following Jessica, Nora, and Alicia, and they were foster kids, and from a young age they've been told how lucky they were. They were adopted on this idyllic farm by Miss Fairchild, their foster mom, and they have been told their whole life they were so lucky. They were so lucky to be, like, you know, adopted and rescued and like fostered, all this stuff. Like, they were just lucky. But there were a lot of rules. Miss Fairchild wasn't what she seems, and they all escaped from this place, and years later as adults they're now being called back because there was a body found buried on the property. And are they finally going to find out everything about Miss Fairchild? This was fantastic. I highly recommend it. I think it's a very kind of summery looking thriller with like the pool and stuff. It really was a good pick for this time of year. I enjoyed the characters deeply. They all had really unique storylines and different like things they were personally dealing with, their own demons and everything, and I just really enjoyed each of the women in this. I enjoyed the snippets. You're also reading this point of view. You don't know who it is, but someone is in the office with like a psychologist or psychiatrist or something like that. I thought that was a really fun, interesting take on it. I loved this. This was so fascinating. Definitely, as is the case with any thrillers really, I would look up trigger warnings for this. This one definitely hit some pretty sensitive topics, as is the case with a lot of thrillers, but definitely for this one in particular, you might want to look some up. But fascinating. Absolutely loved it. It definitely is a harsh look at some of the foster system, unfortunately, but I did, just as a whole, really enjoy learning about these women. They are really resilient people, and I enjoyed the storyline and just seeing the secrets come out after all these years. Okay, and then last but not least, I have Girl Forgotten by Karen Slaughter. This is my first Karen Slaughter, and I actually didn't realize that this is book 2, so I actually have book 1, which I think is here. I think Pieces of Her is book 1, so I accidentally read these out of order. I don't know, this one you could read as a standalone. So this one takes place with 2 different points of view, 2 different timelines, which I love. We have a prom night in 1982 with Emily. She is a student getting ready for prom and she's very excited, but that night she ends up disappearing and nobody knows what happened to her. Fast forward to the future and we have Andrea, who's become a US Marshal, and she gets involved in the case of trying to kind of actually uncover what happened to Emily for some other reasons that are kind of personal to her as well. The more Andrea digs into the case, the more she realizes that Emily had a deep, dark secret. Her family was keeping a lot of things close to the, close to the chest. There was a lot of hidden animosity and stuff towards Emily, and that is probably what led to her disappearance. So I liked it. I really liked Andrea as a character. I guess Pieces of Her really establishes Andrea more as a character and her relationship with her mom, which was talked about a bit in this, so I'm very curious to go back on this. Definitely what you guys were telling me about Karen Slaughter, very true. There's a reason her last name for this pen name, I'm assuming, is Slaughter. She is brutal. There were some scenes in this where I really had a hard time making it through. They were pretty intense. I would not read this before bed if you're at all like a little squeamish or anything like me. There was one of these medical scenes I was just sitting there absolutely horrified beyond belief. I couldn't even. But there were a lot of gruesome details with this. But what I felt was interesting was that I feel like the author handled it in a way where, yes, it was very gruesome. There were a lot of gruesome scenes or very dark content, but it wasn't done purposely for shock value or, something like that. It was really handled in a way where it was purely there to really impact you on a deeper level and to show you just the harsh reality of situations that these characters were going through. So I appreciate it on that end, but be warned, this is definitely a very like hardcore thriller author. As you guys warned me, this one and just her work in general, very brutal, very descriptive, so definitely keep that in mind depending on your own comfort level. Possibly look up some trigger warnings, but I did really enjoy this. I'd say like a 4.5 stars for me. It was a really strong read. I think Andrea and Emily were both very interesting characters to read from, and I'm looking forward to going back, even though I'm doing it out of order, and reading pieces of her and learning more about Andrea's kind of start and everything. So very excited for that. And then last but not least, I have a nonfiction, and that is The Renaissance Soul by Margaret Lobenstein. And this is interesting. So this is a book about people who have a lot of passions in life. It says life designed for people with too many passions to pick just one. So if you've ever felt like you or somebody who switches jobs a lot, like in different niches and like types of professions, you just feel restless a lot, you have a hard time kind of sticking with one thing, you might enjoy this book. I found it interesting. I'm not somebody who finds a hard time sticking with my current job. I'm in my like 4th or 5th year as a freelance writer, but I also get to write for a variety of niches, so I've kind of embodied what she called the umbrella method for people who are like Renaissance souls, which is where you pick a career where you naturally get to work with a lot of variety. So for me as a freelance writer, I get to work writing for different niches, and that keeps it very interesting for me.